Hello and welcome to another episode of Square Up with GraySquare. This week we will be replaying a call. Tim Koontz, president here at GraySquare, ran for our leadership team. He discusses how to get out of a rut. I know we've all been there. Enjoy.
All right, so this is, I guess, I initially called it how to stop going through the motions, and then I kind of changed it to how to get out of a rut. So I guess you could call it either one, but that's kind of the point. Is I feel like a lot of times anything can get redundant and feel like you're just doing the same things over and over and over. And especially if you're not succeeding at what you think is the highest level, then it happens quicker. If you're kicking ass, things can get and stay exciting. If you're not, you can start to feel things start to become monotonous faster, and I don't think it's abnormal to feel that way. I do think, though, that losers, so to say, and I mean that without any emotional baggage, but people that don't win tend to harp on this rut scenario where going through the motions or boredom or whatever you want to call it. They tend to stick to that and think that it's reality and that it's something they can't change without massive overdoing. Whereas people that win tend to adopt and not be as pessimistic about the long term. In my opinion, at the end of the day, most of the times a rut or going through the motions or a slump or whatever you want to call it is a short-term thing. And if it's a long-term thing, it's a mentality problem, not an actual problem. Which I'll get to later in kind of the feedback. I got 5 things here to kind of go through. But I guess that's it. And like I said, this happens personally as well. I remember after my my last relationship long-term ended, I felt like for a while I was kind of in a rut. Personally and professionally, it was just I felt like I was just out of my element. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I wasn't accepted anymore. I wasn't this and it was just a negativity in my head, and I started to perpetuate it. It started to be well, obviously I'm not as cool as this guy, or I'm not as good as this person, or this person's got tons of advantages that I don't have, or whatever. And I had to modify that behavior before the results started to change as well. So hopefully you guys won't think I'm batshit crazy. Hopefully by the end of this, you'll have some constructive ways to modify your behavior to fix these type of situations. All right? So here we go. How to get out of the rut. All right, so number 1, how to get out of the rut is counterfactual thinking. All right, so once again, where you guys will think I'm crazy is that this is very educational focused, not business focused. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to stuff. So number 1 is counterfactual thinking. All one, the first one is all one word, counterfactual thinking. All right. So there are 2 types of counterfactual thinking. The first one is called downward counterfactual thinking. Okay, downward counterfactual thinking is, it could be, an example, it could be worse, at least I blank. Meaning somebody goes for an interview, for instance, and they don't get the job. And they think downwardly, which is an excuse-based format. Downwardly, they think, well, it could be worse. At least I got the interview, which literally serves no purpose. It doesn't help anything. If that's your reaction to something, well, it could be worse. At least I got a paycheck. What is the outcome after that? Like, there's no behavioral change. There's no nothing. You are putting yourself in the rut. But counterfactual means that you take the information given to you and you produce a different outcome than what is right in your face. So once again, downward, let's say I look at the situation. I failed at X. Then I say, well, at least I'm not the worst person in the world, which doesn't do you any good. The upward counterfactual thinking is where you actually try and modify it. So you imagine a better alternative and say, what might I have done? What might I have done? That's upward counterfactual thinking. So you're taking the fact, which is I got $1,000 when I wanted $1 million. And you say, instead of, well, at least I got $1,000 and not zero, loser. You say instead, what might I have done differently than what I actually did? And you imagine an alternative, better outcome. All right, so that's called counterfactual thinking. And you want to be doing upward, not downward. Because upward, once again, will put you in a power position to get out of the rut. If you say, oh, well, at least I got $1,000, there's not a lot of people that make $1,000. What you're doing is perpetuating the behavior that you're currently going through, and you're rationalizing that it's not that bad, which is going to keep you doing the same behavior. As opposed to the latter, the upward counterfactual thinking, we actually imagine the better alternative and think, what might I have done? Because then when you're presented the next time with the same decisions, you'll make decisions in line with the alternative as opposed to the current, right? So that's number one, counterfactual thinking. All right, number two, how to get out of a rut, is understand your comfort zone. Understand your comfort zone. This is completely different than challenge your comfort zone or stay outside your comfort zone or whatever. I'm saying understand your comfort zone. So understanding your comfort zone. Like I said, I'm a nerd. I'm kind of a philosophy nut and a psychology nut, so I actually will sit down and read philosophy for fun. Psychologically, they would, like a psychologist would say, that damn near 100% of everything that you do now is based off of your childhood and your early childhood, your earliest upbringing. For you to be a highly successful person, or a highly productive person, you need to have a good understanding of your childhood and its massive impact on your life. So when I talk about understanding your comfort zone, it's that most people, if they had a really good upbringing, it's easy for them to find comfort. You know, so if they had really good parents in a really good situation, and here's the thing, the only person that matters in the assessment of whether you had a good or bad childhood is you. If you think you did, you did, and if you think you didn't, you didn't. But don't cheat yourself. So if somebody had a really good upbringing with good parents that cared about them, that tried, that worked to take care of them, that, expressed love and affection and so on and so forth, it's going to be easy for that type of person to find comfort. Now, the flip side is if you didn't, you're likely to find comfort in bad areas. So why is it that a lot of troubled youth end up getting into gangs? It's because, mom and dad or both didn't give them the upbringing and attention and affection and comfort that they should have gotten as a child, then this group of adolescents shows them that level of comfort and respect and appreciation, and they get in with it because of their comfort zone, and then it ends up being in a very negative path, which leads to future consequences. But why did they join the gang? Is it because the 13-year-old version of whoever wanted to just steal stuff from regular people in the neighborhood? No, that wasn't the goal. The goal was the attention and the camaraderie and the respect and the rapport and the friendship. And that's why they got in. And then they were forced to make decisions contrary to quote-unquote normal expected behavior. Right, so this doesn't stop going. You have to be able to understand your own comfort zones and understand how that impacts your productivity. Meaning, if what I need to do pushes me outside of my normal comfort zone, I have to understand that my tendency is going to be to stay in my comfort zone. And by understanding my comfort zone, I'm more likely to get into the path that I need to get into. So if my comfort zone says that, okay, if I understand my upbringing and that I need attention. For me personally, my upbringing, I did have very good parents. That I'm lucky my parents were together. That I didn't come from a broken home, divorced parents. But my father was a minister, all right? So he's a pastor of a church. To this day, some of you don't know that, but my father's a pastor. Which, the way that played out in my childhood, and you guys will understand me a lot better probably but from this story, the way that played out in my childhood was that I was constantly, as the oldest son of a pastor. On top of that, my parents weren't supposed to have kids. Like, my father isn't able to have children. And then somehow they had me. So not only was I like the gift from God to my parents that wasn't supposed to happen, but on top of that, I was the preacher's kid, which comes with high expectations. I was supposed to be perfectly well-behaved all the time. I was supposed to get really good grades. I always had a lot of pressure put on me to perform up to the standards of the pastor. Because if I didn't, it was a reflection on my parents and the church. So for me, where's my comfort zone? My comfort zone is when people are telling me and giving me appreciation that I'm doing a good job. So if I'm in a position where I feel appreciated and I feel valued and I feel like I'm being taken care of and treated fairly, and I don't have unreasonable expectations placed on me by external factors, I feel comfortable. So if I'm not careful, Bill, I will seek only that, which may not be productive to get me what I want in other aspects of life. So when I look back on how that impacts me, I think of something like, why did I stay with my now ex-wife? The reason being was because she did that. She made me suffer through tons of other things and manipulated me through other things, but she did that, which kept me there. And so the fact that it wasn't productive to me and it wasn't something satisfying to me didn't matter because she kept me in my comfort zone. All right, so once again, I know this is really out there, but this is huge. So number 2, to get out of the rut, understand your comfort zone. You may be going through the actions and getting the results that you're getting, not because it is peak performance, but because indirectly something is keeping you in a childhood comfort zone that you don't necessarily need to hang on to as diligently as you're hanging on to. And if you let it go, you can find something outside of the rut. For me, the relationship started to tell me that. Okay, listen, I don't need that solely. I want that, but I want other things as well. And once I got outside of that comfort zone, I was like, okay, that's the only thing that matters. All of a sudden, I started finding other people that actually did give a shit at a higher level than I was currently attaining elsewhere. All right. Number 3, how to get out of the rut / going through the motions is set attainable goals. But you need to set attainable goals. So here's the problem, is that we tend to over-exaggerate our abilities and then create excuses. So we tend to over-exaggerate our abilities. You should be hitting 80% of your goals. If you're hitting 20% of your goals, you're over-exaggerating your ability and you're making excuses. If you're hitting 100% of your goals, you're the opposite. You're underachieving because you're setting goals that are very low. You're not pushing yourself. So I think we do the same thing for ourselves a lot. You know, so set attainable goals. Be true about your abilities, and not just your abilities. Because like you're probably thinking, well, I can always get better. Yeah, hell yeah, I can always get better. Good. You're not going to go from A to Z in one day. Like, you're just not. And same thing, setting some goal is not going to change it. Like, if I say that my goal right now is to run a 4-minute mile, I'm batshit insane. Now, does that mean I can't do it? Well, I could probably pull it off, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. So instead, I need to set attainable goals, because the rut comes from constant failure or constant mediocre performance. If I'm setting goals that are too low, I'm not going to have pride in hitting them, and now I'm in a rut. If I'm setting goals that are unachievable, I'm never going to hit them, and I'm going to fail all the time, and now I'm in a rut. All right, so set attainable goals. All right, number 4, mental contrasting. Mental contrasting. This will make sense once I explain it, because most of us do the latter, right? So when you are assessing things, you need to be thinking of the ideal future and the short-term roadblocks, both. So how do you get into a rut? Is if you do one or the other. So if you only idealize the future, if you only think of the ideal future, you're basically indulging yourself. You're sitting around saying, one day I'm going to be pretty and have the hot girl. One day I'm going to be in great shape. One day I'm going to be a millionaire. One day I'm going to be successful. One day I'm going to be an Instagram superstar. One day, blah, blah, blah. All you're doing is you're indulging yourself in hypotheticals. Doesn't work. So what happens? You go through life, you indulge in big picture stuff. And guess what? It's not happening tomorrow. It's not happening on Thursday. It's not happening on Friday. It's not happening next week. It's not happening the following Monday. If your goal is to, like, I've been on a diet since the 6th of November, and I've lost 8 kilograms, whatever the hell that equates to in pounds, like 15 pounds. But I've been cheating a lot. If I sit and say, one day I want to be sexy, it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen on Tuesday. It's going to take a longer time for me to pull off what I want to pull off. So if I'm just constantly indulging in the big picture, I get into the rut because I'm going through the motions and I'm not seeing progress. All right, so instead, same thing. If all I focus on the latter is the short-term roadblocks to keep me from the ideal future, all I see is negatives. So to me, why do I not lose the 35 pounds that I still want to lose? It's more reasons than just self-discipline. Because the fact of the matter is, every diet in the world works. If you just did one of them, you'd be skinny, and I would be where I want to be. If I did anything, any of it works. Every single diet works. The Steve Busa diet that he's on works. The freaking diet works. Atkins works. Slim Fast works. They all work. So why do they not work? The short-term roadblocks. For me, why is the diet not working perfectly? Or my family enables me to cheat a lot. So the kids eat kid food, and which makes me want to eat kid food because fried chicken tenders taste fucking way better than salad. And it's a distraction. It's a roadblock. Once again, is it impassable? No, but it's reality. Same thing. Another one is time. I'm freaking busy. I'm a freaking maniac when it comes to work. So when it comes to my diet, I'll forget to eat a healthy meal at 12 o'clock, and instead I'll eat junk food at 10 o'clock at night. Because by 10 o'clock, I'm freaking starving, and I finally get to relax for 10 seconds, and I'm like, shit, I didn't eat all day today. What do we have sitting around? The 10 o'clock freaking salad stand isn't open anymore. It's just junk food. So I have to understand that roadblock and figure out a way to counteract it. So, once again, mental contrasting says that I look at what I want and then I figure out what the roadblocks are and how to achieve them. If I'm not contrasting. I'm just indulging or dwelling. Focusing on roadblocks is called dwelling. And once again, focusing on the big picture is called indulgent. Both of them lead to mediocrity or a rut or a slump or going through the motions or whatever you want to call it. The only one that works is the mental contrasting, where you think, okay, I want to be in shape, and here are the 10 roadblocks. All right? I'm going to think about both of them. I'm going to find ways to overcome the 10 roadblocks to get to the goal. Every time I overcome a roadblock, I'm seeing short-term victories. Every time I fail, I see progress that needs to be made. Every time I overcome another one, I see more victories and more victories. Now you're not in the rut anymore. You're not going through the motions because you're either reacting to poor performance or you're congratulating yourself for good performance. And boom, you're not in the rut. You're not going through the motions. You're making progress. All right. Number 5, last one. It's called critical thinking. Critical thinking. All right, so I'm going to super nerd out on you guys for a minute. Maybe Chris will be with me here. Chris Johnson, you still on the call?
I'm on, Tim.
All right, do you know, well, before I ask you, am I batshit crazy? Are you guys still with me?
No, you're right on. Spot on.
I'm with you.
All right. All right, cool. Chris, do you know who B.F. Skinner is?
Yes, I know the name. It's about him.
Yeah, so he was a psychologist slash. Yeah, he was a psychologist slash philosopher. He kind of bordered the line here. So he was addicted to the brain and how people think and why people do things. So he's a little bit he was a little bit ahead of his time, but at the same time, of course, he was considered basically a nut job until years later. But one of his pioneering studies was called superstition in the pigeon. All right, so superstition in the pigeon. So, Chris, do you know anything about this?
I don't know that one. I know the dog stuff, the bells and things, but I don't know if it's a pigeon thing.
Okay, so superstition in the pigeon was this. He took, this sounds sick, and once again, this is way before PETA and shit like this. So he took a bunch of pigeons, probably 20 or something like that, and he didn't feed them up until, probably 2 days before they were going to die of starvation. Right, so he had extremely hungry pigeons, and he put them all in a cage. And what he did is he would take a bowl of food and he would swing it through the cage. They couldn't eat it, but he would swing it to them as if they could at random points throughout the day. So he would put it in at, say 1:00. Then 30 minutes later, he'd put the food back in and swing it back and forth over their heads, like dangle it over their heads. Then 10 minutes later, he'd do it again. Then an hour and a half later. It was completely random. It wasn't like every 30 minutes, every 20 minutes, every hour, then half hour, then hour, then half hour. It was completely randomized. So what happened after a while is the pigeons started getting superstitious, and they would reproduce actions that coincided with the last time the food was dropped. So, for instance, he started noticing that 75% of the pigeons, after the fourth or fifth time that he lowered the food, he noticed that around 75% of the pigeons were standing on one leg. Why? Because they figured out in their head the last time that he put the food in, they happened to be standing on one leg. So now they started standing on one leg as if when they stood on one leg, that would magically make food appear. It's called magical thinking. Same thing, a lot of them would stand there and flap their wings because they remember the last time when they put food, they happened to be flapping their wings. And so they would keep flapping their wings, thinking that superstitiously, if they stopped flapping their wings, the food wouldn't come. It was kind of like the ancient Native Americans. They would do like rain dance, and all of a sudden rain would come. Most modern thought says that the dance had nothing to do with them getting rain. It was a superstition. So I don't know if that makes sense. Like literally, the pigeon standing on one leg had nothing to do with him putting food into the cage. But they started to mentally, superstitiously associate standing on one leg with getting food. And so then all of a sudden, they thought that they could impact themselves getting food if they just stood on one leg, which of course wasn't the case. All right, so what does this have to do with a rut or, keep going through the motions or whatever? We do the same thing. We do the same thing. So you go out with one of your friends and you talk to girls all night and you get shut down. And you were wearing jeans and a black button-up shirt. Then the next weekend, you go out and you're wearing jeans and a white button-up shirt and a girl talks to you. What would superstition say? What would B.F. Skinner say? A lot of us would say, okay, if I wear the white shirt, it's my lucky shirt. Same thing, you have hockey players and baseball players and basketball players that will do this. They're like, well, I can't change my socks because these are my lucky socks. We haven't lost since I wore these socks. Do the socks have anything to do with the hockey puck's ability to go in the goal? Of course not. Of course not. But superstition starts to convince me that my behaviors that are completely irrelevant to change have something to do with change. When you see, I used to play poker all the time. And when I did, there'd be like old men sitting around, and they would have like a lucky coin from like World War II. Supposedly, by having it, they would get more money. They would get pocket aces all the time and win more money because they had the lucky coin. In reality, what we all did, all of us that played to actually make money, was like, somebody that's superstitious, a.k.a. somebody that's super stupid. So let's go and attack them and take all their money because they're going to be convinced they're playing optimistically. They're playing artificially optimistic. So let's go and attack them. This same shit happens business-wise. It's like, when I told Du this when he was coming back from New York. I don't know if Du's in the call or not, but I told Du when he was coming back from New York, I was like, if you think you really had anything to do with it, you're sabotaging yourself, you're putting yourself in a rut. It had nothing to do with it. But you can get into that way of thinking where it becomes a superstition. The same thing, Steve, you're kind of on the upswing right now. You may, if you're not careful, wipe out critical thinking and substitute it for magical thinking. Magical thinking would say, the reason now is X, and it's all superstition. Critical thinking would say, what is actually happening right now that I can reproduce and replicate or improve and not replicate so that the same behavior continues or the same behavior discontinues. So how do I stay in a rut? I stay in a rut because superstition is me giving away control. Whereas critical thinking is me taking control back. When I stop saying, this is my lucky shirt, girls love this shirt, and instead say, I'm not in shape, girls don't like not in shape, I spend all my money, girls don't like unstable guys. Let me change those two things so that I can get girl. If you think, it's just my lucky shirt, like, nah, you just got lucky. That was it. You had the white shirt on, and you happened to meet girl with no standards on the right night that was drunk off of her ass. That's it. It was superstition. But if you keep going through that, you're going to spend your entire life thinking, I got to wear my white shirt because that's my lucky shirt. And in reality, you're just being miserable all the time and going through the life because, like, every other time you're like, why do I keep striking out? My lucky shirt's not working. No. It's because you're not thinking critically about how to improve and how to get yourself out of the rut. All right, so 12:47. There's my either helpful or completely ridiculous bullshit that I gave you guys for the day. I will gladly take questions and feedback. I know you guys may have questions. Knock yourself out. I know this is a little bit out there, and you guys get to see my true nerdiness on full display as I'm going through something this ridiculous. But have at it. Questions, comments?
Tim, I have a comment about the superstition thing. I used to do the same thing going out to the bars, wearing a certain outfit, and having success. I used to do it multiple times. Layton's probably heard me say this when we go out sometimes, but same thing with baseball. I used to wear this wristband every time I would bat, over, 300 average or whatever. So I totally understand that whole concept that you just went over.
And at times, though, it does play out that way. But if you think about it, it didn't have anything to do with the outfit.
No,
your confidence was on point.
Yeah.
It was that your attitude was good. Same thing. You weren't getting hits because of the bracelet. You were getting hits for whatever. There's a million other reasons. It had nothing to do with the bracelet. It's the same thing in business. Like, I'm not saying superstition is bad. I'm just saying, and I'm not saying that people are doing it at elementary. Like, literally, it's not that. But here's how people do it. People do it and say, my team is shrinking because it's February. That really has nothing to freaking do with it. like, I've seen teams, like, we used to promote assistant managers almost all the time. I remember my first, 7, I think, assistant managers, I promoted them in February. And normally, February is, the worst time of the year. It's winter, so it's cold. It's dark. No one's graduating college. No one's in the job market. Everyone's getting their tax returns, so they don't need money. Why the hell would I be growing my business during bad months? But people do that. Same thing, people go, well, I do better when I work in Hamilton as opposed to other stores. That's bullshit. It's superstition. And that's where it really does cross over from, Bill's lucky shirt, which he doesn't really give power to, into something that's really impacting his life. They're not looking at, when I go to this store, I work my ass off. When I go to these stores, I just sit and make excuses because it's not the right store. Critical thinking would say the latter. Magical thinking would say Hamilton is lucky. It's the Holy Grail, superstition. We do the same thing. We say, my team is shrinking because it's the end of January, as opposed to my team is shrinking because I'm not working as diligently. I have not been setting the pace. I've not been having one-on-ones. I'm not aggressively attacking to make a good culture. That's the reality of it. So, yeah, Bill, I appreciate the feedback. I gave the elementary examples of superstition just because they're easier to understand, but, literally, you need to think of it more from the critical thinking standpoint. Am I truly digging into how to get better results, or am I just blaming other things? Everything you're blaming is the superstition, no matter how elementary or not elementary it happens to be. This is all this person's fault. That is the superstition. Take the power back. You'll stay in the rut because the likelihood of me being able to wear the super special shirt every day is not doable. So you'll get into the rut and you'll start thinking, dude, I can only build a team in December, which now it becomes a rut because you're like, well, I have to wait 12 months. These next 11 months are just going to fucking suck. Now, if you're critically thinking, you can sit and break apart. Why do I think the way I think? And boom, all of a sudden now you have the power back.
I think it's great stuff, Tim. It's also a different take on that is when you think about how you project things forward, maybe based on superstition or not, but it's whatever your belief system is, a lot of that comes to fruition more times than not. It's amazing, and what you're focused on is what you'll attract to your life.
100%. 100%. Yeah, hopefully this helps you guys. If it went over your head a little bit, hit me up. I'll try and help explain a little bit. I mostly ran it once again. I think we all get into this, and competitive people do it a lot more. I know there's been plenty of times where I've been doing what the outside world would consider doing well. And in reality, I felt like I was just going through the motions. And I was getting burned out. Because if you're not making progress, you're burning out. And when I start thinking better, all of a sudden I get out of the rut. And I think it starts with your mental actions. And like Chris is saying, projecting forward, I think that's in here too, setting attainable goals. If you're thinking about the positive outcome you're going to achieve, you're going to achieve the goal. But same thing, sometimes that's not the complete story. You can still be accomplishing and feel like you're in the rut. Yeah, get out of it. Go through some of these actions. Check one off the list. Finally, if you don't feel like you're in the rut, add this to your repertoire to use for the future for when you do feel like you're in the rut, or pay attention to it so you don't get in the rut in the first place.